The cold, black barrel of a Glock 19 pressed hard against Maya Johnson's temple. The still, perfect afternoon air of Willow Creek Estates, with its white picket fences surrounding lush lawns and blooming roses, seemed to hold its breath. Inches away, Officer Kevin Miller's face was red, twisted with irrational rage. His breath smelled sour of hate as his voice hissed, each profanity and racial slur pouring out like venom. "Who do you think you are, parking your trash can here?" All because her old Honda Civic had been parked too close to his gleaming patrol car. It was a postcard-perfect Tuesday afternoon in Willow Creek Estates. Pale sunlight bathed the imposing roofs, the meticulously manicured gardens, and the smooth, untrammeled asphalt. Wealth and order were evident in every detail. Maya Johnson had just left an old friend's house, a rare personal retreat from her hectic CIA schedule, a chance to escape her usual stressful shell. She didn't live here, and her silver-gray 2010 Honda Civic, though clean and well-maintained, looked out of place among the BMWs, Mercedes, and Range Rovers that dotted the street. She intended to drive straight back to her small apartment in another part of Oak Creek, but then remembered that she needed to buy a nice bottle of wine as a thank-you gift for her friend. At the entrance to this upscale residential area was a cluster of small but sophisticated shops that catered to the local elite. The most prominent was the Gourmet Pantry, an imported food store known for its fine cheeses and fine wines. Maya signaled and found a legal parking spot on the side of the road, right in front of the store. There was a space just behind the Oak Creek Police Department's shiny new Ford Explorer, which was parked in the shade of a large oak tree. Inside, Officer Kevin Miller, a white man in his 40s with short hair and a sour expression, was idly scanning the sparse traffic. His eyes immediately fell on the old Civic and the black woman driving it, an inappropriate presence in his premium patrol area. Maya backed carefully into position. She was a skilled driver, well-trained, and she made sure the car was within the lane markings, well within the curb, and a safe distance from the patrol car in front, perhaps a few feet or so. Completely legal, but perhaps a little too intimate for Miller's taste, or perhaps the mere presence of the car and the color of the driver made him uncomfortable. She turned off the car, checked the rearview mirror, and opened the door. Maya was dressed casually, a pair of well-fitted dark blue jeans, a plain floral shirt, and comfortable sneakers. She looked unremarkable, a far cry from the image of a trained federal agent. It was her normality in this lavish setting that made her even more attractive to Miller. She locked the car with the remote control, a soft beep sounded, and turned to enter the Gourmet Pantry. The patrol car door opened with a soft creak. Officer Miller stepped out, his gait heavy but authoritative. He adjusted his leather belt, heavy with weapons and radio, and walked toward Maya without haste. "Can I help you?" Miller's voice was even, but there was a distinct undertone of inquiry and superiority. The question didn't sound like a request for help, but rather a question. "What are you doing here?" Maya was a little surprised to be stopped by a police officer for no apparent reason. She turned around, facing the officer. "No, thank you, officer. I just want to go into this store for a moment." Her voice was calm and polite, her eyes fixed on Miller, showing no fear or self-consciousness. Miller didn't meet her eyes. His gaze swept over Maya's casual attire, lingered deliberately on the Honda Civic, and then scanned the space between the two cars. "Do you know what neighborhood this is?" he asked, his voice slightly accented. "Willow Creek Estates. We have certain standards here. The way you parked seems a little—" He trailed off, a small smirk on his lips. Maya turned her head to look at her parking spot again. There was absolutely nothing wrong. "I am certain that I am parked properly, officer, and am not obstructing traffic or your vehicle," she replied, still respectful but with a firmer tone. The firmness in her voice seemed to bother Miller. He felt his authority challenged. A black woman driving an old car daring to get back at him in Willow Creek Estates? Your standards seem different than ours, Miller said, his voice starting to tinge with sarcasm. Are you sure you have real business in this neighborhood? The question was a clear question of Maya's legal presence. Maya's patience was starting to wear thin with this irrational and prejudiced attitude. She had faced all sorts of dangers and unpleasant people on the job, but seeing blatant racism in broad daylight in a seemingly civilized place still made her feel a simmering resentment. "Officer," she said, her voice still calm but noticeably cold, "I don't understand what you mean by asking if I have real business here. I am a citizen, and I am about to enter this store as a customer. My presence here is perfectly legal." Miller took a step forward, invading Maya's personal space. He was no longer hiding his distaste. "Client?" He sneered, an ugly smile. "Or are you here to survey? People like you hang around these rich neighborhoods all the time, looking for opportunities to steal. You must be up to something, right?" The words hit Maya like a slap in the face. She frowned, her eyes narrowing. "What you just said is completely unacceptable, officer. It is insulting and racially discriminatory. I demand that you stop this behavior immediately." The word discrimination seemed to be the final spark that lit the fuse in Miller's powder keg of prejudice. He felt accused, challenged by the very object of his contempt. His face turned red. "Discrimination?" he almost shouted, attracting the attention of a middle-aged couple walking their poodle across the street. They glanced at him, then hurriedly pulled their dog along, trying to appear uninvolved. "I'll show you what discrimination is. Give me your ID and driver's license, now!" Miller's harsh voice echoed in the quiet of the neighborhood. Maya took a deep breath, trying to control her rising anger. Years of training had taught her that it was important to stay calm in tense situations. She knew she had to comply with the request for identification, even if it was unreasonable and biased. She slowly, deliberately, reached for the small handbag slung across her waist. She moved slowly, careful not to make any movement that could be misinterpreted as aggression. But Miller, now seemingly completely overcome by emotion and prejudice, interpreted Maya's slow actions in the most negative light, or perhaps he was just looking for an excuse to escalate the violence. "Freeze!" he shouted, his voice cracking with either feigned panic or his own sickly prejudices. "Get your hands out of that bag! Are you going to draw a weapon?" Before Maya could react, before she could even open her mouth to say anything, Miller acted. His hand moved with surprising speed for a man of his size. His standard-issue Glock 19 police pistol slid from the holster at his side. There was a cold, dry click as he cocked the slide. And then, in a terrifying moment when time seemed to stop, the cold, black barrel of the gun was pointed straight at Maya Johnson's temple. Cold metal pressed against flesh. Miller's hot, angry breath fanned her face. The perfect view of Willow Creek Estates behind him blurred into meaningless streaks of color. All that remained was the cop's red, hate-stained face and the barrel of the deadly gun pressed to his temple. The profanities continued to pour from his mouth. "You nigger! You dare to talk to me? You dare to come to this neighborhood and cause trouble? I'll blow your brains out right here on this clean sidewalk and show you what civility is." Maya stood frozen. Her heart was pounding in her chest, but her mind was alert and frighteningly sharp. Every sense was on edge. Years of training for life-or-death situations in the most dangerous places on Earth were now at full tilt. She wasn't panicking, just focused. She assessed the situation. Miller was completely out of control. He was driven by his own prejudices. His finger was on the trigger. The situation was dire. Any wrong move could be disastrous. The suffocating silence of the wealthy suburbs made the shouting and the presence of the gun all the more deafening, incongruous, and terrifying. In that tense moment, Maya did something Miller did not expect. She did not cry. She did not beg. She did not show any fear. Instead, she raised her head and looked straight into Miller's bloodshot eyes. Her eyes no longer held surprise or anger, only coldness, sharpness, and an indescribable authority. Her voice rang out, not loud but clear, steely, cutting off Miller's stream of curses. "Officer Kevin Miller, badge number 714, Oak Creek Police Department." She recited his name, badge number, and unit with precision and clarity. The observation and memory skills of a highly trained spy. Then she continued, her voice as cold as ice. "You have just pointed your service-issued weapon ready to fire at an active federal agent of the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States. Drop the weapon immediately." Miller froze. Maya's words were like a bucket of ice water on his rage. He blinked, trying to process the information. "CIA?" He let out a laugh, but it was forced and shaky. You're CIA?" He glanced at the old Civic, then at Maya's casual clothes. "In this beat-up car? Looking like this? Don't play games with me. Do you think I'm an idiot?" He kept the gun pressed to her temple, but the hand holding it began to shake slightly. A small doubt crept into his mind. He had heard the stories, but the CIA? Right here? Maya didn't waste time arguing or trying to convince him. She knew that words were useless. She needed action. She remained upright, her arms hanging down in a seemingly casual but actually defensive position if needed. One hand remained loosely placed near her crossbody bag. "My federal identification card," she continued, her voice flat and emotionless, "is in a small black wallet, in the outer pocket of my handbag. You have the right to inspect it after you have put down your weapon and assured my safety." Then, before Miller could gather his wits or react, Maya made a calculated move down to the millimeter. With a quick, almost imperceptible movement of her thumb, she pressed a small button hidden discreetly inside the fabric of the bag. It was a speed dial button, pre-installed on a special compact communications device that was always in her pocket and always on standby. The target, Mayor Thompson's office. A second later, a professional, authoritative voice rang out from the small speaker built into Maya's bag, loud enough for Miller and anyone nearby to hear clearly in the quiet space. "Mayor Thompson's office, please." The voice struck Miller like a thunderbolt. He knew that voice. He knew the power behind Thompson, the powerful mayor of Oak Creek, who was rumored to have a palatial mansion right here in Willow Creek Estates. Maya was unfazed. She spoke into the microphone hidden in her collar, her voice clear and coherent, still maintaining her coldness. "Get Mayor Thompson on the line immediately. CIA agent Maya Johnson." She emphasized her title. "I am currently being held at gunpoint by Officer Kevin Miller, badge number 714 of the Oak Creek Police Department, at the entrance to Willow Creek Estates on Willow Drive, near the Gourmet Pantry. Requesting immediate security assistance. Also, please report the situation to Captain David Chen of the Oak Creek Police Department." Each word Maya spoke. Agent Maya Johnson, CIA, Mayor Thompson's office, Captain David Chen, felt like a hammer blow to Miller's reeling mind. His red face quickly turned ashen, then white as a sheet. The aggression and arrogance vanished in an instant, replaced by an undisguised horror. His eyes widened, staring at Maya as if he had seen a ghost. His hand shook violently. The heavy Glock in his hand now weighed 1,000 pounds. He knew Mayor Thompson. He knew Captain Chen. And he knew the dire consequences of displeasing someone directly connected to the mayor and a CIA agent at that, right here in the holy land of Willow Creek Estates. No, it can't be," he stammered, his voice broken, almost inaudible. He awkwardly lowered the gun, but still didn't dare to put it back in its holster. The gun dangled at his waist like a testament to his guilt. Oh God. This is just a misunderstanding. A terrible misunderstanding." He looked at Maya with pleading eyes, terrified. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, running down his temples. "Please, Agent, I'm just nervous. Work is stressful. This area is sensitive. I didn't mean it. Please believe me." The contrast between his aggressive, contemptuous demeanor just a few minutes ago and his cowardly, pleading demeanor now was harrowing. He knew he had made an irreversible mistake. He had pointed his gun at the wrong person, in the wrong place, at the wrong time. The perfect, orderly facade of Willow Creek Estates was now a trap closing in on him, turning the incident into a scandal of epic proportions that could not be covered up. Less than 5 minutes after Maya's call, the artificial silence of Willow Creek Estates was broken by the increasingly loud wail of sirens. 2 Oak Creek Police Department patrol cars sped down Willow Drive, their red and blue lights flashing, reflecting off the white walls and large glass windows of the mansions. In the lead was Captain David Chen's command car. Captain Chen, a stern-faced Asian man in his 50s, quickly stepped out of the car. His sharp gaze swept over the scene. Miller stood there, his face drained of blood, his gun hastily holstered but still trembling. Maya Johnson stood straight, her expression cold and calm to the point of fear. The old Honda Civic and the patrol car were parked close together. At almost the same time, a luxurious black Lincoln Navigator with special mayor's office license plates also quietly stopped right behind the police car. "What the hell is going on here, Miller?" Captain Chen asked, his voice low and hard, not hiding his anger. Miller jumped. He stammered, trying to come up with a disjointed, roundabout explanation. "Captain, I had a situation. Subject acting suspiciously. I followed procedure. Self-defense." His trembling voice and darting eyes gave it all away. Maya didn't wait for Chen to ask. She took a step forward, her voice steady and professional, without any hint of personal emotion. "Captain Chen, this is Special Agent Maya Johnson, Central Intelligence Agency." She laid out the events briefly, concisely, and precisely. Her illegal parking, Miller's unprovoked approach, the racist remarks, the request for identification, and the climax, the gun drawn, loaded, and pointed at her head. No embellishments, no exaggerations, just the bare facts. She then carefully took out a small black wallet from her bag, opened it, and presented a federal identification card with a photo and distinctive CIA markings to Captain Chen. Captain Chen took the card, looked closely at the stamp and information on it. His face darkened. He knew it was real. He looked up at Miller with disbelief and anger mixed in. He turned to the 2 officers who had just emerged from the second patrol car. "Take Officer Miller into custody immediately," Chen ordered, his voice unflinching. "Take his weapon badge and radio away. Take him straight to headquarters. Officer Miller, you are suspended indefinitely, pending a full investigation. Do not speak to anyone until you have an attorney." 2 officers immediately moved in and quickly and professionally disarmed Miller. Miller did not resist, his face ashen, staggering like a man who had lost his soul as he was placed in the police car. At that moment, the back door of the Lincoln Navigator opened. A man in a smart suit, who looked like a high-ranking aide, walked quickly up to Captain Chen and Maya. He introduced himself as Mayor Thompson's chief of staff. "Agent Johnson, Captain Chen," he said quietly but with authority. "The mayor deeply apologizes for this unacceptable incident. He has requested an immediate, full, expeditious, and absolutely uncompromising internal investigation. The mayor's office will be closely monitoring this incident. Agent Johnson, the mayor would like to know if you require any assistance." The incident, which happened right in Willow Creek Estates, involved a federal agent and had a clear racial element, only added to the seriousness of the situation in the eyes of city officials. A few curious residents, drawn by the sirens and the presence of several police cars, began to gather in the distance, standing on their perfect lawns, whispering and snapping pictures with their phones. The cracks in Willow Creek's perfect facade were showing. That same evening, the Oak Creek Police Department's Internal Investigations IA division officially stepped in. They worked with unusual speed and seriousness, largely due to pressure from superiors and the sensitive nature of the case. The IA conducted a detailed interview with Maya Johnson, at a secure private location of her choosing. Maya, assisted by a CIA legal attorney who served as an observer and advisor, provided an extremely detailed multi-page account. She documented Miller's every word, action, gesture, and expression, the exact timing of events, and paid particular attention to the racist remarks and the unprovoked pointing of the gun. Her testimony was coherent, logical, and free of contradictions. Her professionalism and ability to remember details as an agent made the account extremely convincing. In contrast, the interrogation of Officer Kevin Miller was tense. Miller, now accompanied by a police union attorney, tried to tell a different story. He admitted to pulling out his gun, but argued that it was because Maya was behaving suspiciously, failed to follow orders, and that he acted on trained reflexes in a stressful and potentially dangerous environment like Willow Creek. He denied using a racial slur, claiming that Maya had misheard or misrepresented him out of anger. However, Miller's testimony was full of contradictions and did not stand up to other evidence. Data from Miller's body camera was recovered. Conveniently, the audio began to glitch and crackle just before the confrontation became most intense, but the video clearly captured Miller pulling out a gun and pointing it at Maya when she was not making any threatening moves. Furthermore, the pressure from Mayor Thompson's office was immense. The mayor, partly out of a desire to protect the image of the city and the wealthy neighborhood where he also lived, partly out of a working relationship and respect for Maya, asked Captain Chen to handle the incident in the most transparent and severe manner. In addition, an unexpected witness appeared. The owner of the gourmet pantry, a polite middle-aged man, was initially hesitant, but after learning Maya's identity and seeing the police department's determination to clear up the matter, he decided to testify. He confirmed that he heard Miller yelling and saw the police officer pointing his gun at the black woman who was standing calmly. His testimony matched Maya's and further undermined Miller's defense. Maya Johnson was not one to sit back and wait for justice to be served. She understood better than anyone how the machinery of power worked and the flaws in the system. She knew that if she had been a private citizen, without her CIA credentials and connections to the mayor, this case would likely have been covered up or handled much more lightly. She proactively maintained regular contact with the mayor's chief of staff, ensuring that the case did not sink. She asked the CIA's attorney to thoroughly review all of the IA's investigative materials, ensuring that no details were overlooked or misinterpreted. She was not asking for personal vengeance, but for the rule of law. She wanted Kevin Miller to be held accountable to the full extent of the law, not just for what he had done to her, but to send a clear message that abuse of power and racism in the police force would not be tolerated. Maya's determination, systematic approach, and ability to coordinate information as a top spy were thoroughly applied to her pursuit of justice. She used her special position as a tool to ensure that the system functioned properly, at least in this case. The IA investigation was unusually quick and efficient. With Maya's strong testimony, body cam evidence, witness testimony, and no small amount of political pressure, the conclusion was reached in just a few weeks. The IA report states that Officer Kevin Miller violated a number of serious policies of the Oak Creek Police Department, including using unnecessary and excessive force, serious misconduct while on duty, discrimination based on race, abuse of position and authority, and making false statements during the investigation. Based on this report, the Oak Creek Police Department Disciplinary Board convened an emergency meeting. After a short session, they voted unanimously to permanently terminate Kevin Miller from the force. Captain Chen announced the decision immediately at a press conference, emphasizing that the Oak Creek Police Department does not tolerate any misconduct, especially racism and abuse of power, and pledged to work to regain the community's trust. In parallel with the internal investigation, the case was forwarded to the Oak Creek County District Attorney's Office. District Attorney Eleanor Vance, a woman known for her toughness and willingness to take on difficult cases, carefully reviewed the evidence. Faced with the seriousness of the case, the overwhelming evidence, especially the pointing of a gun at an unarmed federal agent, and the intense public and high-level attention, Vance quickly made a decision. The district attorney's office has formally approved criminal charges against Kevin Miller on a series of serious charges under the state penal code. 1. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for pointing a loaded gun at Maya's head. 2. Terrorist threats based on Miller's threatening words and aggressive behavior. 3. Abuse of power, taking advantage of the police position to commit illegal and discriminatory acts. The decision to prosecute a police officer for such serious crimes has caused a stir, but it has also received strong support from civil rights organizations and those seeking justice. Kevin Miller, through a defense attorney paid in part by the police union, pleaded not guilty. The case went to trial before a jury. The trial lasted nearly a week and attracted extensive local and national media attention. The prosecution, led by the deputy district attorney himself, presented a strong case. They called Maya Johnson to testify first. Dressed in a formal business suit, Maya maintained an extremely calm, professional, and trustworthy demeanor. She recounted the entire incident in detail, objectively, without any hint of hatred or revenge. She answered the prosecutor's questions clearly and coherently. When Miller's defense attorney attempted to attack her credibility during cross-examination, questioning why she had not disclosed her CIA identity in the first place, or trying to suggest that she had been defiant, Maya calmly responded with logic and facts. She explained that revealing her federal agent identity was not something that should be done casually, and only when the situation required it in self-defense. She insisted that she was merely reacting to Miller's unreasonable advances and insults. Her composure and accuracy made a strong impression on the jury. Maya's testimony was supported by body cam video, testimony from the gourmet pantry store owner, and Captain David Chen's testimony about Miller's state of panic, slurred speech, and guilty expression when he arrived at the scene. The defense tried to paint Miller as a dedicated, pressured officer who acted in a split second due to a misreading of the situation and feeling threatened. They tried to blame Maya for overreacting and driving an inappropriate vehicle into a sensitive area. However, these arguments were weak and unconvincing in the face of the evidence of unprovoked pointing of a gun and the racial slurs that were recorded. After the final arguments from both sides, the jury retired to deliberate. It didn't take long. After just over 3 hours, they returned to the courtroom with their verdict. The atmosphere was tense. Your Honor, on the charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kevin Miller, guilty. On the charge of terrorist threats, we find the defendant, guilty. On the charge of abuse of authority, we find the defendant, guilty. Kevin Miller slumped into his chair, his face white. Murmurs arose in the courtroom. A few weeks later, the sentencing hearing took place. The presiding judge, a man known for his severity, read a long and scathing statement before delivering his final verdict. He highlighted Miller's egregious betrayal of his oath to serve and protect the people, his abuse of public trust, and the danger his actions had posed. He specifically condemned the racial profiling, calling it an unacceptable stain on the profession of law enforcement. The defendant's actions not only endangered the life of a citizen, but also profoundly damaged the relationship between police and the communities they serve, the judge said. There is no excuse for pointing a gun at an unarmed person out of prejudice and irrational anger. A sentence that is sufficiently deterrent is needed to send a clear message that this behavior will not be tolerated. The judge then sentenced. The court sentences the defendant Kevin Miller to a total of 4 years and 8 months in prison. The specific sentence, not probation, is an important victory for justice. It shows that even a white police officer with the backing of a union is not above the law. Maya Johnson was present for the entire sentencing hearing. She sat quietly in the front row of witnesses and victims. When she heard the verdict, she didn't smile triumphantly or gloat. She felt only a heavy sense of relief. Justice, though long overdue and fought for, had finally been served to some extent. That evening, after receiving countless congratulatory calls and texts from colleagues and friends, and even a brief but heartfelt thank you from Mayor Thompson, justice has prevailed. Thank you for your steadfastness and professionalism, Agent Johnson. Maya sat alone in her apartment, looking out at the twinkling city lights in the distance. She drove out of Willow Creek Estates that afternoon, but the image of that neighborhood, the contrast between its exterior perfection and the ugly hatred that lurked within, haunted her. She couldn't help but think about the irony of fate. It was in what seemed like the safest, most civilized, most heavily guarded place that she'd encountered blatant racism and death threats simply because of the color of her skin and the car she drove. She knew that if she hadn't been Maya Johnson, the CIA agent who had the direct number to the mayor's office, the story of that day might have ended very differently. She might have been wrongly arrested. She might have been injured. Or worse, she might not be sitting here thinking. The thought did not frighten her, but it did make her feel a deep sadness about the injustice that still persisted in society. Justice had come to her, but how many others, those without status, without voice, without power relationships, had suffered the same or worse without ever finding justice? Her victory was a reminder of her own privilege and also a motivation for her to continue her work, not only to protect national security, but also to fight quietly for a more just world, even if only by small acts within her sphere of influence. The cracks in the perfect surface of Willow Creek Estates were also the cracks in society that she knew she had to continue to confront. The Willow Creek Estates incident shows that racism and abuse of power can lurk even beneath the veneer of seemingly perfect wealth and order. Maya Johnson, through her position and determination, brought the wrongdoer to justice. But is a prison sentence enough to change the deeply ingrained prejudices of someone like Kevin Miller, or to deter others from doing the same? And more importantly, how can we build a law enforcement system and a society where justice does not depend on who you are, what you do for a living, what car you drive, or who you are related to? A system where every citizen, regardless of skin color or background, is treated fairly and kept safe.